Hello and welcome back to English for You. I'm Seb.
I'm Kat.
And we are going to be talking about the real country that inspired The Handmaid's Tale today.
Oh, the real country?
No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
It's
I'm kind of glad about that.
Yeah.
But you did say it was inspired by Puritans from 400 years ago.
Yes.
And they actually did come to the US from the UK, as I remember.
Yes.
Because they were like, oh, we want to set up a very strict way of life, and you can't do that here.
Yes, England is too. I think that's the only time people have said England is too relaxed. But the Puritans thought that we were too relaxed, so they went away to the US.
Right.
Yes, so that was one of the themes, but there's a lot of other things that influenced it, particularly feminism. Feminism is a very big theme.
Yes.
In The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, which you wouldn't really think it would be that way because all of the women in that book are oppressed and enslaved.
Right.
But actually, it turns out to be a very powerful driving force in the book.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
So,
and I think sometimes, actually, when you're talking about a modern-day issue that might not be so extreme, you can create a very good kind of question around it or a dialogue around it by creating a very extreme story which illustrates your points.
Yes, or says like, hey, if you just let things go a little bit, this is what could happen. And I think that was Margaret Atwood's point with this.
Yes.
So we're actually going to take a look at it right now and see what Margaret Atwood was thinking when she wrote The Handmaid's Tale.
Reading.
The Handmaid's Tale. Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel, The Handmaid's Tale, is the account of a woman living in the fictional Republic of Gilead. The book has several important themes. Women and society is one of the most important ones. In Gilead, men control society, while all women have been assigned fixed roles. These affect everything in their lives, from the color of the clothes they wear to how much freedom they have. Low-ranking women, such as handmaids and Marthas, house servants, are basically resources. They have almost no freedom or legal rights. Even high-ranking wives are not allowed to read. Beyond gender roles, Atwood's world also raises important questions about sex. At the time she was writing, many Western feminists were arguing about sexual freedom. Some thought it made women look bad. Others thought it was an important part of being a modern woman. Similarly, Gileadians see sex as both a shameful and important part of life. This is why handmaids are treated so poorly while also holding a position of honor. For men, meanwhile, sex is seen as ordinary and natural. Sadly, this double standard also exists in the real world. Only when we have full gender equality will this be any different.
Okay, so our article begins. Let's just jump in.
Yep.
Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel, The Handmaid's Tale, is the account of a woman living in the fictional Republic of Gilead.
I'm really glad it is fictional.
So am I. Remember, something that is fictional is something that is not true. Okay, so let's look at the word account first. Account is a noun, and an account is a story of an event as told by one particular person. Earlier in the year, you'll remember that we learned about The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. That was also an account. It was Anne's own experience of World War II. Similarly, this Handmaid's Tale tells of one person's experience living in Gilead.
Right.
So we could say that she is giving an account, which is another way of saying giving your version of events.
Yeah.
So let's look at an example sentence now. The witness gave her account of what she saw happen during the robbery. That's not the only definition of account, though. An account can also be a special area where someone stores money or information as well.
Yeah, like a bank account.
Right, right. Or a jianghu, basically. So you could have a bank account, or you could also have a social media account as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have, you know, if you have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, those all have accounts. Yep, Netflix account as well.
Yep.
Loads of accounts.
Yeah.
But anyway, all of these accounts are real. They're definitely not fictional.
Yeah.
And that is our other word. which we said is something which is not real. So a fictional story is a narrative story, a story which is made up. So Anne Frank's one difference between Anne Frank and Offred is Anne Frank her account was non-fiction, and Offred's account is fictional. It's made up.
Yeah, so Anne Frank's story was not made up. Because she was a real person, she died in a real war, that sort of thing. But anyway, so it's an account of Offred's time in Gilead. So the book has several important themes, and themes are something we always discuss in literature articles, but right now we're going to learn, what does the word theme actually mean? A theme is a noun that means an idea that runs through a book, movie, or other kind of story. Every good story should have at least one theme to tie it all together. Otherwise, it's probably not very meaningful. It doesn't have a whole lot of ideas about it or things it wants to say. So themes, like I said, run through the whole story, and they can be either primary themes, which means it's like the number one thing you have to think about, or secondary themes, which might mean it's kind of a side thing that different people are doing or dealing with. Now, different characters might even have different themes around them. Themes in books are usually really big ideas, like parts of human nature, human society, or ideas about what people think the world should be like, or should not be like in this case. You should always look for the big picture. That's the theme. So common themes that you might see in literature might be good versus evil. That's the biggest theme in most every work of literature. Freedom is a big theme. The effects of war, friendship between people, or people's duty to their family or to their society, people's desire to find love. Those are all big themes that people might think of. Now, an example sentence for theme might be, the story's main theme is the closeness of family, but it also talks about what women hope for their lives.
Okay, so we are talking about the themes now, and the article says women and society are one of the most important ones.
Yeah, women and society.
Is one of the most important ones there.
Yeah.
Misread it. We're not talking about women, one theme, and society, another theme. We're talking about
women and society.
Women and their relationship with society and their place in society and how they work into society.
Yeah, because
they're definitely part of it. They're half of it.
We are half of it, and you know, if you think about society, women's and men's issues are actually a really big part of how we think. Yeah, they are. So and I mean, this book blows it up even bigger. So in Gilead, men control society while all women have been assigned fixed roles. Okay, so fixed means like it can't be changed, that sort of thing. Assign is a verb that means to give something to somebody to do, like a chore or a task that they have to do for somebody else. So the word assignment, if you've ever heard the word assignment, which is a noun for homework, like assignments for school, that is something you are assigned to do. You have to do it for your teacher. You are obligated to do it. People being assigned roles means that they have to become that person.
They have to behave in a certain way.
Yeah.
So the article goes on, these affect everything in their lives, from the color of the clothes they wear to how much freedom they have.
Right.
So a lot of this book can be connected to different aspects of real society.
Yeah.
Not just the power balance between men and women, but also I think how society tells women they have to be in different ways. This is kind of magnified into like a much more extreme way, where if you're this kind of woman, you have to wear red and you have to wear this kind of hat and you can leave the house in this way and you have to sleep in this room of the house.
Yeah, but I think in real life, a lot of times girls and women feel like, well, in order to not be judged as this kind of person, you have to wear this kind of clothes. Or if you wear this kind of clothes, people are going to think you're too sexy or that kind of thing. Or too much of a prude, like you don't want to, you know, be with men or anything like that.
Exactly. Do you see how it connects?
Yeah.
It all connects.
Yeah. Anyway, so the article goes on to say low-ranking women, such as handmaids and Marthas, house servants. My mom's name is Martha, by the way.
Shout out to your mom.
I'm mad about that. My mom should not be made a servant. Are basically resources. Yeah.
In fact, there's actually an expression that you guys can use when you want to say that you're not someone's servant. You can say, "I'm not your mother."
Oh. Yeah. I'm not your Martha?
I'm not your mother.
I'm not your mother.
You could though.
Oh,
if you want to seem very literate, If you want to seem like you read a lot of books, you can say, I'm not your Martha.
Yeah.
No one will know what you mean, but you'll know that you're clever.
I'm not your mother. I don't
Yes.
have to take care of you. Be an adult.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Exactly.
so rank here is a verb when you say like somebody is low ranking, high ranking. When you rank people or things, you say which ones are at the top, which ones are in the middle, and which are at the bottom. So for example, your rank in school might show how good your grades are, whether you're student number 1, student number 53, or student number 707, something like that.
Ugh, how did you stay in the school?
Oh, you tried a little
big
bit.
class.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Or how do you do on your tests? That's another way to
Yeah.
rank. People's ranks in the military show who is the commander and who has to follow the commands. And those ranks are very formal, so everyone has someone they need to answer to. For example, if someone outranks you, it means they're a higher rank than you. It might mean they have more power and influence, and you have to do what they say. Even in Gilead, which treats women terribly, there are higher and lower ranking women. Yeah. So an example sentence for rank might be, in this country, people used to be ranked by their jobs. So certain jobs had better social standing than other ones.
Okay, we also saw the word resource as well, or resource. Now, a resource is a noun, and it's a thing that is very valuable and important for a particular purpose. So oil, water, food, electricity are all important resources that we need to make our society work. We don't really call gold, jewels, and things like that resources because they are valuable just because they are what they are. We don't really use them for stuff. We can say that money is a resource though, because we use it to buy things. In The Handmaid's Tale though, we are talking about certain women being resources. And this is another way that we can see that they are slaves in this world. They are treated as things and are being used by other people, rather than having the freedom that they should have. Now, we can use resource in other ways as well. We can talk about someone being resourceful. We can turn it into an adjective, and there we're talking about someone who finds solutions in difficult situations, often without the need of often without having things that they should need. So, for example, Marta is so resourceful. When our barbecue broke down, she managed to build a bonfire for us to cook with. So that's a very resourceful thing to do. Here's an example sentence using resource now. Canada has vast natural resources, including large amounts of oil and minerals.
I find it interesting that resource, or as you said, resource, is one of those nouns, one of those words that you say differently according to where you're from. So how do you say it?
I normally say resource.
Yeah, and I say resource.
But I've been around so many Americans now, I'm never sure. You can use both,
Yeah.
but probably for your exams you should say resource because you are learning American English.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, if you say resource, then nobody's gonna not understand what you mean. It's the same thing. Right, so yeah.
Let's get back to the article. So we're talking about these women being like resources. And the reason we're saying this is they have almost no freedom or legal rights. Even high-ranking wives are not allowed to read.
Wow. So
Okay.
Serena Joy, who is the commander's wife and is pretty smart, if I remember correctly,
She is
not allowed to read.
There's a little bit of a sad irony about Serena Joy, actually, because we actually know what she's like before Gilead is created.
Yeah.
She used to be this kind of
Free woman, right?
Yeah, and she used to be a singer, and she did have ideas about creating a very traditional world.
Yeah.
But she had influence and she had a career, and in the story, all she does after all of this is created is she knits and she goes out into the garden and gardens because she's super frustrated that that's all she can do now. She's just like, I'm gonna knit.
Yeah.
Knit more things, just knit all day.
Yeah, I mean, what else can she do? She just has to distract her mind. Anyway, so the article goes on to say, beyond gender roles, Atwood's world also raises important questions about sex. Of course, because, you know, gender and sex, they're very, you know, big, heavy topics. Even today, like, it's been more than 30 years since this has been written, and it's still, I would say the topics are still as big today as they were back then.
Yeah, a lot of it can still be applied to today.
Yeah. So Gender is this word that means like female, male, or other, something between female or male, or not female or male. That's your gender. It's not how you are born with your body. It's about the social roles that you're put into according to what kind of body you are born with. So if you're born with a girl's body, you're called a girl. If you're born with certain things that a boy has, you're called a boy. Yeah. Now, people can also now tell others if they have a different gender than their body at birth, and those people are called transgender people. So if Seb, for example, has a boy's body, but sees himself and the other world sees him as a girl, then he is a woman, and that is transgender. Now,
exactly, and I don't have to actually do anything to my body to be transgender.
Yeah, it's how you feel.
How I feel.
Yeah. Now, many or even most people have some idea of what certain genders are like. So, for example, people might think, even if they don't say, that men are more aggressive than women. They like sports more. They're better at doing certain jobs and learning things. While they might think women are softer, more interested in things around the house, or they talk more about their feelings. These are all stereotypes, but they're the kind of stereotypes that we, sometimes believe without even thinking about it. And they're the kind of stereotypes that Gilead made their society on.
They wanted to reinforce these. They wanted to make these stereotypes basically real by using some very extreme rules. So, how does this connect to Atwood's background? Well, the article says, at the time she was writing, many Western feminists were arguing about sexual freedom.
Right.
Okay, and I think we can see how this plays into the book itself. But first, let's talk about feminists, because we've talked about feminism a couple of times in this unit so far, and we need to know what it means. So, a feminist obviously is a noun, and basically it is someone who supports the idea that women have the same rights as men. That's the most basic idea in feminism, or 女性主义.
Yes.
So feminism has developed into lots of different ways of thinking about men, women, and gender.
Yeah, there's a lot of kinds of feminism.
Right. It's too many to get into right now. But one thing that they all have in common is that they are against sexism, which is 性别歧视主义, which is the belief that gender does make someone different, better, or worse than the other.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the time that Atwood was writing, a lot of feminists were discussing sex. They were all talking about sex. So what were they saying?
Well, some thought it made women look bad if you were too sexual, if you wanted too much sex, if you, didn't, pretend that sex made you feel shy, or like it was only something you were supposed to do after you got married. If you had those ideas, some people thought it made you look bad.
Right, and other people thought that if you were having sex, then maybe you were kind of being the kind of women that some men talk about, So you're kind of giving them a reason to think badly about men, and kind of giving other women giving women a bad name.
Yeah.
So that was lots of talking about, what's good, what's bad.
Yeah.
Things that we can't really get to the bottom of right now.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Anyway, others thought that sex, it was an important part of being a modern woman.
Yeah. So the article goes on to say, similarly, Gileadians, it's people in Gilead, see sex as both a shameful and important part of life, because you need it to make babies, but also it makes you a certain kind of person. So see something as something here is a grammar structure that means you believe certain things about something and you believe that they are a certain way. So for example, I see myself as a nice person. I hope I am. It doesn't mean it's 100% true fact, but it's my thought. It's my opinion. Yeah.
You're a nice person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You are too.
I see you as a nice person.
Oh, I see Seb as a nice person as well.
I see that as a compliment. Okay, you see how it works. You see how it works.
Yeah, so then we go to this other thing where it's shameful. Shameful means something is embarrassing. It's not something you talk about. It's a part of life that people should try not to do or try to get rid of because it's bad. It's, it makes people feel a certain way. Sometimes people feel really disappointed or disgusted about seeing or hearing about it. So if you say someone behaves shamefully, it means they embarrassed you with their behavior.
And they should feel bad about what they did.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's continue now. The article goes on saying this is why handmaids are treated so poorly while also receiving a position of honor.
Right.
Okay, oh, I see how it's going now.
Yeah.
So it goes on, for men, meanwhile, sex is seen as ordinary and natural.
Yeah, because men get a pass on everything in Gilead and women get a pass on nothing.
And do we think this connects to real life?
In some things, yes. In some things, yes.
I think especially in the 80s, even more so.
Yeah, more so back then, because people are more willing to talk about it now.
Right.
But the article says, sadly, this double standard also exists in the real world. So standard here, we're going to talk about double standard in just a second, but first we need to know what standard itself means. Now, standard is a noun that means something people set up as like a model for how things should be done or how they should be measured. So if you say that there's a standard for something, it means that people see there being a right way to do something.
Right.
For an example, it's a standard of living for many countries, including Taiwan, for people to have clean water, electricity, internet, comfortable places to sleep, and enough space to move around. That's a standard of living.
Normal things to want.
Yes. The standard for keeping things clean might be very different depending on people's culture or just the person. Like my roommate and I are both from America. His standard of cleanliness is very different from mine. He is much more clean than I am.
Okay. I was wondering where that would go. It's like, is it higher or lower?
I mean, I'm pretty clean, but he's really clean. All right. But when you have a double standard, that means you expect one thing for yourself and another thing for other people. For example, you're not a clean person, but you expect other people to be clean. That's a double standard. That's not fair. You have to keep the same standards for yourself as you do for other people. So they're saying a double standard for men and for women. They have different expectations of both of them. Now, an example sentence for standard might be, Gary has high standards for the women he likes. They have to be beautiful, smart, kind, and very rich.
I wonder if Gary is beautiful, smart, kind, and very rich.
I don't know, but
it could be a double standard.
Chances are, like, you know, it would be very hard to find somebody with all of those qualities.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, the article says, only when we have full gender equality will this be any different. Will our double standards be disappeared?
And you thought we were going to end our day 3 article there, but we actually have to look at a grammar point before we finish.
Okay.
So let's cut to that and then on to our For You chat question. Okay, only when, that's our grammar point for today. We add only when at the beginning of the sentence when we want to emphasize that the time that something can happen is at this time. So for example, only when you finish your vegetables can you have your dessert. So in other words, if you don't finish your vegetables, you can't have dessert. Only when you have eaten all of them, can you eat them. So we use this structure by taking only when and adding an auxiliary verb, so can, a subject, you, and a verb, have in this case. So notice that we have to invert the verb as if we're asking a question. So it's only when you finish your vegetables can you have dessert, and not only when you finish your vegetables you can have dessert. That's something a lot of non-native speakers struggle with, so just try and remember that. We can also use this structure with only after, only if, only while, etc. So all of these are used just to emphasize a time or a condition. So for example, only while you are taking your exams will I drive you to school. So only during the period that you are studying, you are going and taking these exams, will I do the favor. Only under this condition will I drive you all the way to school. Otherwise, you have to take the bus. Or another one we could look at is only if you ask nicely, will I give you a piece of pie. So if you ask nicely, I'll give you a piece of pie. Okay, let's go on quickly now to our last vocab word of the unit, equality. Now, we've been kind of talking a lot about equality on and off throughout these 3 days. So what does it mean? Well, it's a noun and a situation or state in which people have the same rights and advantages as everyone else. So that seems very simple. For some reason, we live in a world that does not have a lot of equality. So in a society with full gender equality, people would not be treated differently because of their gender. They wouldn't be expected to behave in certain ways either. We wouldn't be telling women to be quiet and sweet and romantic, and we wouldn't be telling men to be strong and independent and protective. We would just let people behave naturally, the way that they naturally develop. It seems like a very simple idea, but for some reason it's not something that we actually have taken on completely in the 21st century. And speaking of the 21st century, here is our example sentence. In the 21st century, no country or region has achieved full racial equality.
For you chat.
Okay, so for our For You chat today, we've got kind of a really big question. Like the last two questions were more plot related. This one's going to be a bigger discussion question for you guys. So Seb, what are some ways you think women and men are treated differently in real life?
Wow, okay, that is a very big question.
It is.
Right, well, loads of ways.
There are loads,
They're treated in loads of different ways.
And it depends on the country too.
Yeah. There's a lot we can talk about here. So we already talked about in the article how women are expected to behave in certain ways, and in real life how women are expected to behave in certain ways, and men are expected to behave in other ways.
Yeah.
So that plays into the book, that plays into real life. So there's that. There's personality and behavior. We expect that from people. We treat them differently. You know, I think we use different words as well, and use different language when we're talking to men and women sometimes.
Yeah, like I think of, you know, beautiful versus handsome, or pretty versus handsome.
Yeah.
Like a lot of men might feel insulted if you called them pretty, even though it's kind of a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah, or even women might feel insulted if you call them handsome.
I know.
Yeah.
It kind of makes them sound old.
Or manly, I guess.
Exactly.
But I don't think it's a bad thing.
Exactly.
If somebody calls me handsome, I'll be like, thank you. Yeah.
And like even manly, I mean, in some ways, you know, it depends on how you use these words. Anyway, so that's only one aspect of things. We could also talk about how women and men are treated differently at work, how they're treated differently when they're brought up.
Yes, exactly.
These are things that you guys can talk about now. Why don't you guys start brainstorming ways that men or women and women are treated differently in real life?
Yeah.
And maybe you can have a discussion of some of these differences, and we can get to the bottom of this whole gender problem that we live in.
Yeah, it's up to your generation to make things better, as always.
Exactly.
Okay.
You guys fix it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not what I was trying to say. But
No. Of course. Anyway.
we mean the children are our hope. They're our future.
Yes, children are.
So anyway, we've got to go.
Yes, we do.
But we will see you guys in the next article. We hope you enjoyed this time with us. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Handmaid's Tale. Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel, The Handmaid's Tale, is the account of a woman living in the fictional Republic of Gilead. The book has several important themes. Women and society is one of the most important ones. In Gilead, men control society, while all women have been assigned fixed roles. These affect everything in their lives, from the color of the clothes they wear to how much freedom they have. Low-ranking women, such as handmaids and Marthas, house servants, are basically resources. They have almost no freedom or legal rights. Even high-ranking wives are not allowed to read. Beyond gender roles, Atwood's world also raises important questions about sex. At the time she was writing, many Western feminists were arguing about sexual freedom. Some thought it made women look bad. Others thought it was an important part of being a modern woman. Similarly, Gileadians see sex as both a shameful and important part of life. This is why handmaids are treated so poorly while also holding a position of honor. For men, meanwhile, sex is seen as ordinary and natural. Sadly, this double standard also exists in the real world. Only when we have full gender equality will this be any different.
Vocabulary Review.
Account. This writer's new book is an account of a family that sailed around the world together. Theme. This film has several important themes, which include war, love, and trust. Rank. The general ranked very highly in the army and commanded a large number of soldiers. Resource. Japan lacks many natural resources, such as oil, and has to buy them from other countries. Standard. Max's article was below the magazine's standard of writing, so it was not printed. Equality. An example of this company's lack of equality is that 90% of its 500 employees are men.
智慧小补帖
Fictional. Assign. Gender. Feminist. Shameful.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net